All right, welcome everyone. This is SIG Instrumentation. Today is April the 16th. And what do we have on the agenda today?
I have a couple things.
You want to take it?
Yeah, the first one is, okay, so I wrote this thing yesterday, so excuse the snarky verbiage. I was very tired. I will rewrite it. But it is basically what we discussed in the last SIG meeting for um, being able to dynamically restrain the cardinality of the metric label values. So if people have time to look at it, or people have read it and they have thoughts, would love to hear feedback about it, get some ideas.
Actually, Lily and I were briefly talking about it today. One thing I think Lily, I mean, she can speak for herself as well, but I think we were talking about there's like one PR out there about reducing cardinality of bucket metrics, or like buckets. We were wondering if we could potentially solve the same thing with that. As it stands, I think no, but I wonder if there's a possibility where we could do something like that.
No, yeah, this would work with that, right? Buckets are labels.
They are, but the way that I understood your proposal is that any label that we try to set that is not part of the whitelist would go into some other bucket, right? And that wouldn't work for a histogram, at least.
No, it would, because okay, so the way I think about labels is a little bit different from the fundamental Prometheus model. For the Prometheus model, labels are not actually tied to a metric, right? Like they're like the underlying data structure is like you have this label, it's some string, and there are n values of that label, and it doesn't matter which metric it came from. However, practically speaking, that's not really true. That's not how people interact with metrics. Labels are scoped, right? So
I'm not sure
I'm
that's
not
true.
saying,
I
well,
mean, the unique combination of a set of labels makes the identity of the time series, right?
well, the unique combination of the label values plus the metric name makes a unique time series.
The metric name is just a meta label.
That is true. That is true. And so, like, yes, and so, but the way that so the way my proposal sort of abstracts that thing is, if a label is considered nested, it's already going to be scoped to that metric label name, right? Like, do you
Yes.
see what I'm saying? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I understand the.
It would solve the problem that you are describing. It would absolutely solve the problem that you are describing, because I am not doing this generically for a label. I'm doing this scoped to a metric name and a label.
Yeah, I think the only part that I wasn't sure about is I think you have like the fallback mechanism, basically, where if you try to set some label to some value that is not whitelisted, it will go in some non-value or something like that, right? And so I'm not sure that would be okay for a histogram. I mean, obviously, it's not that big of a deal because the histogram, or I don't know, I think
No,
I'm not
no. I
exactly
mean,
sure
like,
what would happen with the LE label.
it would be nonsensical for the
Yeah.
histogram. But we can hard code this, right? LE is we know what LE is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
that was kind of the idea of or the discussion that Lily and I were having, where
Yeah, you guys should comment, and or yeah, I mean, like, make a poll. I'll merge it
yeah,
into the thing.
yeah, it was just a like side conversation that we happened to have because of the bucket thing, not so much
Yeah,
because of your proposal.
I
um,
actually,
yeah,
did not think about that thing, but I do remember that issue where people wanted to get rid of some of the dimensions from one of the metrics because there's too many buckets. But yeah, sure. I think that would be super easy to do. Yeah. So if anyone wants to help out with the cap or whatever, just feel free to make any modifications or whatever. Send a pull request. Add yourself as a co-author and whatever.
Yeah.
And
I think in general it's
the dates for release. And so we have, I guess we have less than a month, 3 weeks. So
sorry, is Han breaking up for everyone else as well?
Freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's breaking up
A little bit. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Han, we can't hear you. I think you were talking about important dates.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
A little bit better, yeah.
Hold on, give me 1 second.
I think Han was
Is that better?
just saying that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just
Yeah, it's
switched
better.
my Wi-Fi. Okay, great. Yeah, I was just saying we have a deadline coming up, and if people want to get their caps in, there's 3 weeks. So probably if you want to get a cap in this release cycle, you would need to have it written and probably have some people looking at it by the next SIG meeting.
Yeah, realistically, there are only 2 working weeks before the cap freeze. So
Yeah, but I imagine if someone has a cap that they get a draft of by the next SIG meeting, then we could probably get it in. We can probably get it in. So
yeah, I think it depends on the size and everything, but
for sure.
I think if anyone wants to realistically get anything in, it probably needs to be opened by the next meeting so that we can at least discuss it a little bit and then obviously do reviews and potentially merge it. But what I wanted to say about the, like a closing note about the first topic, to me, it doesn't seem all that controversial. I think the devil as always is in the detail, but yeah, the limiting label values doesn't seem all that controversial. I think there was some talk about it in kubestate metrics already as well, potentially also with label values. Sorry, with like more dynamic metric names as well, but yeah, we can talk about it on the cap as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's lots of cardinality things with kubestate metrics.
Okay.
But yeah.
I think the next point that we have is, should we plan on bringing metric stability to GA in this release?
I would like to start marking metrics as stable because we are treating them as such, and we should probably be auditing changes to these things.
I think before we can do any of that, I think I generally think you're right, but before we can do that, have we actually completed all the things that we wanted to do for the metric stability cap in itself? Because I don't think so. I think there are a couple of CI checks and stuff like that.
There's a couple CI checks, and we need to be able to turn off metrics. So yeah,
I'd say those things are relatively big. We probably can't take that to GA without those things.
I think the turning off metrics is actually built. We just need the flag.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think if we get all of that stuff done before enhancement freeze, then it should be fine. But like we can work on it all simultaneously as well, trying to identify that list of metrics we want to be stable. But I don't think we should set any of them to stable until we have the rest of that stuff.
Agreed. That's exactly what I meant.
Yeah, I mean, there are a subset of metrics which I really want to mark as stable, like the request ones, because people use them for SLOs. You really can't change those. Like the request latency, request count, they're like kind of special.
I tend to agree, but we just changed them. So I'm not.
We changed, yeah. So what did we do?
We dropped the client label, which was
we
a
dropped the
perfectly
client
good
label.
thing to do. But like, I don't feel too confident having just changed them that we should be marking them as stable right away.
So alternatively, so if we don't want to do that, then I actually don't like the metric, and I think we should create a better version of it. Right? So if that's really the way you feel about it, then we should wipe the slate clean and get a good metric. Like we should have.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you prefer that? Because that thing is like, it drives me nuts.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Oh, that one is going to be a little bit trickier, but okay.
I don't disagree at all. We also use this for SLO tracking.
It sucks.
Yes, I definitely agree. We can improve this a lot. Yes.
Dumb question. Would the list of metrics you want to be stable, like, should that be a cap so folks can comment on it before we go? Like, because the code change is trivial, but like picking that list is maybe worth discussing.
It's going to be up to component owners. Because they are the ones who are agreeing to the contract of maintaining those metrics and their APIs.
Plus us,
reviewing them.
Plus it gets synced into our directory, right? Which we are owners for.
It does.
So, yeah, I think at the very least, for the first ones that we're doing, we should probably actually discuss them in this round. Like I'm happy to like start reviewing the metric, see what we would want to change, and do those changes, and kind of go about it in that way. And then once we've actually reviewed them a couple of times, maybe for one or two releases we've been happy with the actual state, that's where I think something can probably become stable, because it's a pretty tough commitment, in my opinion, to make a metric stable.
Should we be sending out some communication about this, like on Kubernetes Dev or something like that? Like, yo, propose some metrics to be stable. Let's talk about them this release. I think if we're making this, if we're aiming on taking this GA, this release, we're going to have to do that, because I just don't see another way. Like, if there's not a cap or some sort of communication to the rest of the project, I'm not sure how we're going to like do this in some blanket form.
Well, the API machinery ones are a little bit easier for me because I'm active in API machinery.
Yes, but like, it's not just API machinery we care about. We care about everyone.
Yeah, for sure. David's probably a good point of contact for the node ones.
For sure.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to come up with a list of contacts. I'm saying we need to inform everyone if we're taking this GA. So somebody should draft a communication and send that out to Kubernetes Dev or whatever. Be like, hey, think about this. Talk to us, etc. Here's the plan.
Yeah, I think that's also very much why we need to actually finish our cap completely before we can like mark any of them as stable, because at the end of the day, basically we haven't finished all our work, but we're asking other folks to do work more or less with that framework. I think it's going to get only messier if we invite people to already start using it.
It's not that bad, right? I mean, like, these metrics exist. People depend on them. And like, you can't, like, I know that it's an alpha, but like, really, if that one disappeared, like the request ones disappeared tomorrow, like, you would hear about it. No, you would break it literally everyone in the world. Like, so, I mean, like, not marking it as stable is like, okay, we're just okay with breaking you for now because we don't have a contract. It's like,
but that's why we did this whole thing. We didn't.
Yeah.
I tend to agree that like for very sensitive metrics like this one, we can talk about a more sensitive migration strategy. But yeah,
like dual metrics or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think this is a good one to take up for our next meeting. That let's look at like the two most basic metrics that we have, which is request count and latencies. And just review them, see what we find odd, maybe more violations to our guidelines, which I'm sure there are, maybe not within those two, but I'm pretty sure they exist. So yeah.
Yeah, content type is camel cased label. It's the only camel cased label. That's drives me nuts.
And probably something that shouldn't exist at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. So we have okay, we have a couple of issues for the bug scrub. We have two issues.
There were a couple questions in chat. People can also feel free to speak up. There one question, but as I said, you can feel free to speak up as well.
This is my first meeting, so yeah. These are very naive questions, and feel
welcome.
free to. But I have been asking around, and I'm finally getting to the point where I realize that if I haven't gotten an answer anywhere else, so I have to like go to the source, and if I can't find it here, then I'm going to have to be part of the solution.
Cool. Yeah, perfect. Do you just want to ask your question?
Oh yeah. So in the context of this particular discussion, I'm just curious of whether there's already some thinking around having like a maturity index for a particular metric. So if people see it, maybe they'll see a value that will be a reflection of like how long the metric has been in use, how frequently it churns, how many dependencies it might have, something like that.
So for those sorts of things, there are not much, there's not much other than like what's in sort of like source control. The thing that we were just discussing, the metric stability framework, is supposed to provide some of that, but it is not yet GA.
Oh, so you're talking about the tool that would actually do that. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. There's a cap right here. Let me see if I can dig it up.
Yeah, if someone can link the cap in the chat, that would be great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
So
I also
essentially
relink the agenda again.
Maybe to explain the topic a little bit. Basically, we've introduced a framework where we can mark individual metrics as alpha, beta stable. And alpha is essentially, we can break anything at any point in time. We're making no guarantees around it. I think we never actually finished the entire discussion around beta metrics, but stable is essentially, we need to go through a very specific deprecation model to remove something. So you, basically the idea is you can rely on these metrics. But in the same way, and this is kind of the discussion that we were having, we need to make sure that the metric that we're marking stable, because it's a large commitment, we need to actually ensure that it's high quality, and that we're not going to change it anytime soon, because that would mean we need to go through the deprecation process again. But you're totally right. There's like things like churn or stuff like that is a very valid concern, and something that we need to take very much into account when we mark something as stable, or consider marking something as stable.
Yeah, because I think that in general, I've seen this movie several times before. I'm just relatively new to the Kubernetes community, and so what tends to happen is we have certain habits around how we approach unknown, new, novel problems, and sometimes it's useful to simply know how much is known or how confident we are in the information that's available. And then each individual consumer can make the decision about how dependent they want to be on that resource. And that allows for kind of an ongoing continuous improvement. In some respects, the scale of like alpha, beta release is sort of more of like an old waterfallish approach where one has like an artifact and then the artifact is done and then we simply move on to the next thing. Whereas this is, I think, a little bit more like a traditional manufacturing QA process where, you know, eventually you get to like errors per million and then you get down to like errors per billion. So the precision keeps sliding. And so maybe I'm just wondering if there might be a way of incorporating some of that thinking. So independently of the other categorization, I'm not saying that we should undo that, but instrumentation, you know, the metrology.
That sounds like a great idea to me. Sorry, just keeping an eye on time because we only have 6 minutes left and the community meeting is right after this one. We have, I think, 3 things left on the agenda. Bug scrub, a bug that Sarathius mentioned, and fixing the calendar invite. Can somebody quickly, like, I don't know who put fixing the calendar invite on the agenda. Can somebody quickly speak up to that? Because I think there are currently some issues we're trying to work through with who owns what in order to get that fixed.
Yeah, so the calendar invite, yeah, that was me, because we can't, it really bothers me that we keep getting linked to the old meeting notes, and then we have like a pointer to the new meeting notes, so that's lame.
Okay, I think that is probably something the lead should work to fix offline. Because I don't think anybody else in the meeting can fix that. I don't think somebody here owns that.
But how do people get the meeting invites? Is it just by registering to the group? Is that an automatic thing?
Yes, you join the Google group. And the problem is the meeting invite itself was created with a CoreOS Google account that does not exist anymore. Yeah, and it's kind of a mess. I'm not exactly sure how to resolve it. I think we said that potentially someone somewhere within Red Hat might be able to have admin access to all ex-CoreOS accounts.
Can we just make a second one that somebody else owns?
I think we will not be able to get rid of the first one. Is the issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We should probably discuss this offline. This is not something we need to talk to the whole SIG with. I don't think we're going to have time to do a full bug scrub. Mark, do you want to talk about this issue that you linked in the agenda?
I think that it was linked by Han, but yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything to discuss. It's just the idea that how we can ensure that all the changes to metrics are reviewed by someone from SIG Instrumentation. So I just started it, currently talking with some people from Pro and looking for their feedback, what are their ideas about how to implement it. That's all.
Cool. Yeah, then we can have a more effective bug scrub because we don't get tagged on instrumentation related stuff. It's very annoying. Okay, then I guess we can adjourn until the next meeting unless somebody has.
I just wanted to say, I do think we should continue this discussion that we had about the maturity model. I'm either happy to continue that discussion in the next meeting or also happy to do it asynchronously on Slack, because I think this could be, at the very least, the things that you mentioned, I think are fantastic criteria to mark something in whatever maturity we want it to be, or say like it must have these requirements or something like that. It doesn't have to be a hard rule, right? But at least thinking about these requirements a little bit more is definitely something that we haven't done enough, I think. So I'd love to continue this discussion. Yeah.
And just a reminder for folks, and for some folks who this is their first meeting, welcome. If you want to discuss stuff in the SIG meetings, just make sure that you throw them on the agenda. As long as you're a member of the Google group, you should be able to edit that and add that there. Anything else from anyone else?
Maybe we should put it on the doc that people should add it themselves because it's not obvious for new people.
That's a good idea.
Yes, at
No
the top
time
of
like the
doc.
present to take the initiative. Okay,
All right.
folks, then I think we can adjourn.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a wonderful local
Thanks,
time.
everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thanks,
Stay safe.
everyone.
Yep. No.